The waning months of 1941 confronted American ordnance specialists with a profound predicament, one destined to fundamentally alter the landscape of military chemistry. At that critical juncture, the United States Army possessed no man-portable weaponry capable of effectively neutralizing a German Panzer III tank from its frontal aspect. Intelligence dispatches from North Africa painted a grim picture, detailing how Field Marshal Rommel's formidable armored divisions effortlessly repelled every anti-tank rifle round hurled against them by Allied forces. Britain's primary defense against German armor, the venerable .55 caliber Boy's anti-tank rifle, proved woefully inadequate, barely scratching the 50mm frontal plates even on the lighter Panzer variants. Meanwhile, American military inventories presented an even more disheartening scenario, with the experimental T3 anti-tank rifle from the Springfield Armory existing solely as theoretical blueprints, languishing in dusty filing cabinets. The root of this pervasive issue extended deeper, into the very core of America's explosive chemistry infrastructure. Production facilities for trinitrotoluene, or TNT, originally constructed during the Great War, had been idled and neglected for 2 decades, their machinery rusted and woefully obsolete. When the War Department initiated efforts to reactivate these plants in early 1941, it quickly became apparent that the advanced armor of contemporary German tanks demanded a far greater explosive force per pound than TNT could possibly deliver. This revelation underscored a significant technological gap, highlighting how swiftly military requirements had outpaced existing chemical capabilities. We invite you to stay with us and watch the remainder of this compelling video. We would be immensely grateful for your kind like and subscription. Please also consider leaving a comment below, sharing your place of origin, and your thoughts on the crucial topic discussed in this video. Chemical engineers stationed at the esteemed Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey conducted a series of crucial penetration tests that September. These experiments utilized standard TNT-filled shaped charges directed against sections of captured French tank plates. The results were unequivocally bleak, demonstrating a meager penetration of barely 3 inches into homogeneous steel. Compounding this concern, German intelligence reports indicated that their newer tank designs incorporated face-hardened armor, which would undoubtedly offer even greater resistance. This was not merely a deficiency in hardware. It exposed a fundamental stagnation in America's entire philosophy regarding military explosives. The chemical formulations employed in American munitions had remained largely unchanged since 1918. Ordnance officers continued to specify TNT for a broad spectrum of applications, ranging from artillery shells to demolition charges. Despite a growing awareness that European powers had advanced beyond TNT, particularly with the Germans developing a compound known as hexogen and the British calling it RDX, both actively deploying it in combat, American chemists remained largely ignorant of the safe and scalable synthesis methods for this potent new material. The few classified reports that managed to traverse the Atlantic detailed alarming factory explosions in Britain during initial attempts at RDX production. One particularly devastating blast at a Woolwich facility in 1940 claimed the lives of 17 workers and left 43 more injured, underscoring the perilous nature of its early manufacture. Concurrently, the armor plating on German tanks continued to thicken at an alarming rate. Intelligence photographs arriving from the Eastern Front in December 1941 revealed new Panzer IV variants boasting formidable 80mm frontal plates. This meant American infantry would soon face these armor behemoths armed with little more than hand grenades and desperate prayers. While the Army's rocket branch at Aberdeen proving ground-possessed experimental shape charge warheads, they were designed for cumbersome launcher platforms that necessitated 3-man crews and vehicle transport. Frontline soldiers urgently required a weapon that a single individual could carry, aim, and fire swiftly before being cut down by a tank's machine guns. The precise chemical formula to make such a weapon possible existed somewhere within German and British laboratories, but in American hands, its realization seemed akin to an alchemist's elusive quest. Lieutenant Edward Ewell, a mere 26 years old, harbored no initial ambition to revolutionize anti-tank warfare. His sole objective was to resolve a persistent design flaw that had plagued every rocket launcher prototype crossing his desk at the Ordnance Department's Research and Development Service in early 1942. Each design incorporated elaborate sighting systems, intricate firing mechanisms, and unwieldy shoulder stocks, rendering the weapons heavy and awkward to deploy. Ewell's commanding officer, Colonel Leslie Skinner, had been grappling with the complexities of rocket-propelled grenades since 1940, yet none of his designs had managed to achieve both precision and portability simultaneously. The pivotal breakthrough occurred on a serene spring afternoon in May 1942, and its simplicity was almost astonishing. Ewell was meticulously examining a prototype shape-charged grenade within the Aberdeen Proving Ground workshop when Colonel Skinner entered, presenting a formidable challenge. They needed a launcher weighing less than 15 pounds, costing under $5 to produce, and operable by a soldier with minimal training. Ewell, in a moment of inspired improvisation, picked up a length of scrap steel tubing from a nearby workbench, ordinary electrical conduit, approximately 5 feet long and 2.36 inches in diameter. He instinctively held it to his shoulder, much like a makeshift telescope. He realized the rocket motor's exhaust would harmlessly vent behind the shooter. No complex breech mechanism would be necessary, nor any elaborate recoil absorption system, merely an open tube. Skinner immediately grasped the elegant simplicity of the concept. Within an astonishing 72 hours, they had welded crude iron sights onto the tube, affixed rudimentary wooden shoulder stocks, and fashioned a basic electrical firing circuit utilizing a common flashlight battery and doorbell wire. The inaugural test firing transpired on May 14, 1942, at the Aberdeen range. Ewell carefully loaded a 3.5-pound rocket, essentially a fin pipe bomb equipped with a shape-charged warhead, into the rear of the tube. He aimed at a simple wooden target frame positioned 60 yards away and depressed the firing trigger. The rocket propelled forward with a distinct whooshing sound, trailing a plume of white smoke, and detonated precisely on target. The entire weapon had cost a mere $4.83 in materials, but hitting wooden frames offered little meaningful data. They urgently required penetration data against actual armor plate. The Army promptly transported sections of hull from a captured French Somme tank, 45mm homogeneous steel, comparable to the protection found on German Panzer IIIs. On May 21st, Ewell fired 3 rockets at the plate from a distance of 40 yards. The first round pierced cleanly through, leaving a hole the size of a baseball. The second round penetrated and sent lethal spalling fragments flying 30 feet behind the target. The third shot flew slightly high, yet still carved a crater 4 inches deep into the formidable steel. Colonel Skinner, reportedly overcome with astonishment, seized the tube launcher from Ewell's hands and examined it as if he had discovered a magical artifact. The iconic name for the weapon emerged later, during a demonstration for high-ranking Army officials in June. Major General Glaydon Barnes, observing Ewell fire the weapon, supposedly remarked that it bore a striking resemblance to the musical instrument played by radio comedian Bob Burns, a jury-rigged trombone constructed from gas pipes, which Burns affectionately called a bazooka. The name instantly resonated and stuck. By July 1942, the Ordnance Department had officially designated it the M1 rocket launcher and placed initial orders for 5,000 units. However, the launcher itself represented only half of the solution. The rocket warhead still relied on conventional explosive mixtures that barely achieved 4 inches of penetration. To effectively punch through 6 inches of German steel, they would require a chemical formulation that the U.S. Army had, until that point, explicitly prohibited from service. Britain's invaluable contribution to American explosive chemistry arrived discreetly in a manila envelope during August 1942, hand-delivered by a Royal Navy courier who had flown into Washington via Bermuda. Inside lay 23 meticulously typed pages detailing formulas, temperature curves, and precise production specifications for a substance the British referred to as Composition B. This document represented 2 grueling years of perilous trial and error at His Majesty's explosive research facilities, incorporating the catastrophic lessons learned from the Woolwich disaster. Composition B was not a singular chemical, but rather a meticulously balanced mixture, 60% RDX, the potent high-explosive compound both nations had been desperately seeking, combined with 40% TNT, and a trace amount of wax added as a desensitizing agent. The British asserted that this mixture delivered 1.6 times the explosive force of pure TNT when utilized in shape charge applications. RDX itself possessed a rather unusual genesis. German chemist Georg Friedrich Henning first synthesized it in 1898, not with any explosive intent, but as a potential medicinal compound. He published his findings in academic journals, never foreseeing that the innocuous white crystalline powder would one day become a devastating weapon. The compound's full chemical name, cyclotrimethylene trinitramine, proved quite a mouthful, leading to the widespread adoption of the British military designation, Research Department Explosive, or simply RDX. The Germans independently rediscovered the compound in the 1920s and commenced manufacturing hexogen for military applications by 1935. British chemists at Woolwich Arsenal initiated their own RDX program in 1939, prompted by the devastating properties revealed in captured German ordnance. Initially, the American chemical establishment resisted adopting RDX for a very straightforward and compelling reason. The substance proved viciously unstable during its synthesis. The British manufacturing process involved combining hexamine, a compound commonly found in camping stove fuel, with concentrated nitric acid. This reaction generated an immense amount of heat, and if temperatures ascended above 25 degrees Celsius during a critical phase, the mixture carried a high risk of spontaneous detonation. The infamous Woolwich explosion, for instance, occurred when a cooling system failed during a summer heatwave. Workers had only minutes to evacuate before 700 pounds of partially synthesized RDX detonated, utterly collapsing an entire building and shattering windows up to 3 miles away. American chemists associated with the National Defense Research Committee meticulously studied the British documents throughout September 1942. Dr. Werner Emanuel Bachmann at the University of Michigan proposed crucial modifications to the synthesis method that promised to significantly reduce the inherent explosion risk. His innovative approach incorporated acetic anhydride as a buffering agent and meticulously controlled the concentration of nitric acid. By October, Bachmann had successfully synthesized small batches of RDX in his university laboratory without incident, a monumental achievement. The War Production Board immediately authorized the construction of dedicated RDX plants at 3 strategic locations: Holston Ordnance Works in Tennessee, Wabash River Ordnance Works in Indiana, and Radford Arsenal in Virginia. The first American-made composition B left the Holston plant in January 1943. Workers pressed the material into cylindrical molds under powerful hydraulic pressure, creating the precisely shaped explosive charges that would fit inside the new bazooka warheads, finally providing American soldiers with a fighting chance against German armor. The efficacy of bazooka warheads underwent significant scrutiny and subsequent enhancement. Initial penetration assessments conducted at Aberdeen Proving Ground revealed a marked improvement in performance. Specifically, Composition B warheads demonstrated the capacity to pierce 4.5 inches of homogeneous steel armor when striking at optimal angles, which was a notable increase compared to the 3.2 inches achieved by their TNT-filled predecessors. However, this advancement was quickly overshadowed by the evolving capabilities of German armor. The formidable Panzer V Panther tanks, which commenced production in early 1943, boasted 80 mm frontal armor, strategically angled to provide an effective protective barrier equivalent to 6 inches of vertical steel. This disparity in defensive and offensive capabilities meant that American ground troops would remain at a disadvantage unless a method could be devised to extract greater penetrating power from warheads of the same diameter. Unbeknownst to many, a solution was already being developed in an unauthorized capacity within a Harvard laboratory, where a researcher was experimenting with compounds explicitly prohibited by the Army. Dr. George Kistiakowsky, a Ukrainian-born Harvard professor who had fled the Bolshevik Revolution in 1920 and subsequently earned his doctorate in Berlin, possessed a profound aversion to bureaucratic constraints, particularly when such limitations impeded scientific progress in chemistry. His distinguished reputation for studying explosive shock waves made him the undisputed choice to lead the National Defense Research Committee's Explosive Research Division in 1940. By March 1943, Kistiakowsky had meticulously reviewed all bazooka penetration test data from Aberdeen, and the figures left him deeply dissatisfied. While Composition B represented a commendable chemical achievement, he believed the existing warhead design squandered its full potential. The shape charge cone, an integral component within each warhead, was fabricated from pure Composition B. This presented a fundamental flaw. The explosive was inherently brittle and, upon detonation, shattered unevenly. This erratic fragmentation disrupted the precise formation of the explosive jet, which was crucial for achieving maximum penetration. We hope you are staying with us to watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please leave a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Kistiakowsky was well aware from pre-war German research that the incorporation of finely powdered metal into plastic explosives could significantly refine their detonation characteristics. Specifically, the addition of aluminum powder had the potential to elevate the temperature of the explosive jet, while simultaneously rendering the mixture more pliable during the manufacturing process. Yet, this promising additive came with a critical drawback that caused considerable apprehension among Army ordnance officers. Explosive compositions containing aluminum powder, when mixed with oxidizing agents, became substantially more sensitive to friction, impact, and static electricity. The British had, in fact, imposed a ban on aluminum-loaded explosives in their munitions plants following a series of unfortunate accidents in 1941. American safety regulations promptly mirrored these concerns, with Army Ordnance Manual 3200 explicitly prohibiting aluminum powder concentrations exceeding 5% in any service explosive. Kistiakowsky, however, chose to disregard this regulation. During April 1943, operating within the confines of Harvard's Jefferson Physical Laboratory, he meticulously formulated a novel mixture that he designated Composition B+. The precise recipe was intentionally provocative. It comprised 40% RDX, 40% TNT, 17% aluminum powder, and 3% wax. The aluminum content in this audacious formula was more than 3 times the officially permitted limit. He cast small test charges in his laboratory using improvised equipment that would have undoubtedly horrified safety inspectors, essentially modified cake molds heated over Bunsen burners. The resulting material exhibited a dull gray hue, distinct from composition B's yellowish tint, and possessed a slightly waxy texture reminiscent of sculptor's clay. The inaugural penetration tests took place in May 1943 at a provisional range Kistiakowsky established on Harvard property. He could not utilize official Army facilities without exposing his unauthorized formula. Employing scaled-down shape charge cones molded from his aluminum-loaded mixture, he conducted tests against steel plates generously donated by a local shipyard. The outcomes were astonishing. Penetration capabilities increased by approximately 35% when compared to standard composition B charges of an identical size. A 2-pound test charge successfully punched entirely through 3 inches of steel plate and carved a substantial crater in the backing material situated behind it. The aluminum was performing precisely as Kistiakowsky had anticipated. It combusted during detonation, superheating the explosive jet to temperatures exceeding 4,500 degrees Celsius and significantly augmenting its velocity. He meticulously documented all findings in a classified report submitted to the NDRC in June 1943, fully anticipating immediate resistance from Army safety officials. Instead, the dire circumstances of the war superseded caution. Intelligence dispatches from Sicily that summer painted a grim picture, detailing American infantry's arduous struggle against formidable German Panzer IVs and Tigers. Bazooka rockets were consistently deflecting off frontal armor with dispiriting regularity. By August, the Ordnance Department quietly authorized field trials of Kistiakowsky's Composition B+ in modified M6A3 bazooka warheads. Production facilities received directives to implement the new formula, accompanied by stringent enhanced safety protocols, including grounded equipment, precise humidity controls, and strict limitations on batch sizes. Workers were now tasked with handling explosives 3 times more sensitive than anything they had previously encountered. However, the potential reward was a penetration capability of 6 inches, sufficient to pose a threat to every German tank except the Tiger's frontal plate. Kistiakowsky's previously forbidden powder mixture was now being deployed to the battlefield. Safety regulations were, for the moment, disregarded. Normandy's unique bocage landscape rapidly transformed into deadly killing zones within mere hours of the June 6, 1944, landings. These were not merely decorative garden boundaries. They were ancient earthen walls, standing 8 to 12 feet high, fortified with dense root systems, and crowned with impenetrable brambles. German defenders exploited these natural fortifications with ruthless efficiency, strategically positioning Panzer IVs and assault guns in concealed gaps, enabling them to ambush advancing Sherman tanks at ranges under 100 yards. American armored crews found themselves trapped in constricted lanes with no room for tactical maneuver, often sustaining direct hits before even sighting the enemy. The 2nd Armored Division suffered the loss of 47 tanks in the initial week of bocage combat, with the majority destroyed before having the opportunity to fire a single shot. Bazooka teams emerged as an unforeseen yet crucial solution. Staff Sergeant Robert Thompson of the 29th Infantry Division chronicled one of the earliest successful engagements in his after-action report, dated June 12, 1944. His squad was pinned down in a sunken lane near St. Lo when a Panzer IV suddenly appeared 60 yards ahead, its 75 mm gun traversing menacingly toward a disabled Sherman. Thompson's bazooka gunner, Private Eugene Lucero, fired from a kneeling position, concealed behind a bocage embankment. The M6A3 rocket, loaded with Kistiakowsky's aluminum-enhanced composition B+, struck the Panzer's hull side at an almost perfectly perpendicular angle. The shape-charged jet cleanly pierced the 50mm side armor, triggered the detonation of ammunition stored within, and violently propelled the turret 15 feet into the air. Thompson's report specifically noted that the penetration hole was easily the size of a man's fist, surrounded by glowing edges. The effectiveness statistics compiled by 1st Army Ordnance officers that July unveiled a remarkable narrative. Bazookas equipped with the new M6A3 warheads achieved an impressive 68% kill rate against Panzer IV tanks when hits were registered on the side or rear armor. Even frontal shots against the Panzer's 80mm plates, when striking at angles less than 30 degrees from perpendicular, attained a 41% penetration rate. While not guaranteeing a kill, this was sufficient to compel German tank commanders to maintain a greater distance or risk catastrophic damage. The 4th Infantry Division reported the destruction of 23 German armored vehicles with bazookas during the battle for Cherbourg in late June, a stark contrast to the mere 7 tank versus tank kills achieved by their attached Sherman units. The Panther tank presented a more formidable adversary. Yet, even against this challenge, the upgraded bazookas demonstrated their value in unexpected ways. Lieutenant James Flowers of the 90th Infantry Division recounted an engagement near Purriers on July 8, where his platoon encountered 2 Panthers obstructing a crossroads. Direct frontal shots proved futile against the Panther's sloped 80mm glassy plate. Its effective thickness approached 140mm when factoring in the angle. However, Flowers skillfully coordinated his bazooka teams to fire simultaneously at the tank's tracks and lower hull. 3 precisely aimed rockets successfully disabled the running gear of both Panthers, rendering them immobile. Subsequent shots directed at the thinner rear armor, which measured only 40mm, penetrated cleanly, forcing the crews to abandon their vehicles. The after-action report noted that aluminum residue from the shape-charged jets had fused with the internal surfaces, generating secondary incendiary effects that ignited fuel and ammunition. German tankers began to adjust their tactics by mid-July. Captured. Documents from the 2nd Panzer Division contained explicit warnings about American Panzerschreck teams, the Germans' own term for the bazooka, adopted from their heavier Panzerschreck launcher. Tank commanders received strict orders to maintain distances exceeding 150 yards when confronting infantry, to never expose side armor, and to immediately suppress suspected bazooka positions with concentrated machine gun fire. The very fact that German armor doctrine was adapting specifically to counter a weapon that had not existed 3 years prior served as a powerful validation of every risk Kistiakowsky had undertaken with his forbidden aluminum formula. The underlying physics that enables a 3-pound warhead to punch through 6 inches of steel defies conventional understanding until one grasps the precise mechanics of detonation. Most people envision shaped charges operating akin to armor-piercing bullets, a solid projectile forcefully ramming through metal by sheer kinetic energy. The reality, however, involves no solid projectile whatsoever. When Kistiakowsky's aluminum-enhanced explosive detonates behind a copper cone, it transforms that cone into something resembling a liquid metal jet, traveling at velocities that would render rifle bullets appear motionless. The seemingly static appearance of bullets belies the complex physics at play, a phenomenon whose foundational principles were first meticulously documented by the American chemist Charles Edward Monroe in the year 1888. Remarkably, Monroe conducted his groundbreaking research without any foreknowledge that his discoveries would eventually underpin the development of sophisticated anti-tank weaponry. His accidental elucidation of this effect occurred during routine experimental investigations into gun-caught explosives at the Naval Torpedo Station. In a series of tests, he positioned blocks of the explosive material against steel plates, each bearing the manufacturer's name embossed on its surface. Following detonation, Monroe observed that the steel plates bore strikingly deep and remarkably detailed impressions of these embossed letters, rendered in reverse. This unexpected outcome led him to the profound realization that specific cavities or indentations within an explosive charge possess the singular ability to focus the immense energy of detonation into extraordinarily concentrated and powerful jets. While he promptly disseminated his findings within various naval journals, the potential military applications of what would become known as the Monroe effect remained largely theoretical and unexplored for many subsequent decades. It was not until the 1930s that German researchers reignited interest in this dormant concept, meticulously re-examining Monroe's work and its implications. By 1938, the ingenious Swiss engineer Henry Mohaupt had achieved a significant breakthrough, successfully developing practical artillery shells incorporating the shape charge principle. The intricate mathematical equations governing the depth of penetration of these charges are influenced by a multitude of variables, yet the singularly most critical determinant is the sheer velocity attained by the explosive jet. When the formidable detonation wave originating from composition B+, a potent explosive mixture, meticulously collapses the precisely engineered copper cone nestled within a bazooka warhead, it imparts an astounding acceleration to the metallic liner. This process propels the copper to velocities approaching an incredible 25,000 feet per second, a speed approximately 23 times greater than that of sound. This hypervelocity jet transcends the conventional rules of solid mechanics, instead behaving entirely according to hydrodynamic principles. The copper, under such extreme conditions, effectively transforms into a fluid-like stream, capable of eroding its way through formidable steel armor with an efficiency akin to a high-pressure water jet dissecting a mound of sand. The ultimate depth to which this potent stream can penetrate is thus directly contingent upon its length, its velocity, and its inherent density. Kistiakowsky's innovative integration of aluminum powder into the explosive mixture served to significantly augment both the temperature and the velocity of the resultant jet, thereby propelling its destructive efficacy far beyond the capabilities achievable with pure composition B alone. The precise geometry of the cone itself demanded an exceptional degree of engineering exactitude. Following an extensive series of rigorous tests conducted in late 1943, American ordnance engineers definitively standardized on a 42-degree cone angle for their bazooka warheads. Experimental evidence had unequivocally demonstrated that shallower angles, while producing jets of greater length, unfortunately resulted in a commensurate reduction in their critical velocity. Conversely, steeper angles, although yielding faster jets, generated streams that were simply too short to effectively breach the formidable thickness of contemporary armor plating. Furthermore, the thickness of the copper liner itself proved to be a critical design parameter. A liner that was too thin would fragment prematurely during detonation, losing its cohesive power, while one that was excessively thick would resist efficient collapse by the explosive force. Consequently, the meticulous engineers at Aberdeen Proving Ground ultimately settled upon a precise thickness of 0.042 inches for the copper sheeting, specifying that it be drawn from oxygen-free, high-conductivity stock to guarantee unwavering and consistent performance. As a testament to this unwavering commitment to quality, Every single copper cone underwent individual inspection under magnification to detect any minute surface flaws that could potentially disrupt the flawless formation of the penetrating jet. We ask you to stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The inclusion of aluminum powder within Kistiakowsky's specialized formula contributed its unique destructive capabilities through a series of secondary reactions entirely absent in traditional composition B. As the powerful detonation wave propagated through the explosive charge imbued with aluminum particles, these metallic constituents underwent an intense and rapid explosive oxidation. This chemical process liberated a substantial amount of additional thermal energy, significantly amplifying the destructive potential. This ingenious modification elevated the jet's temperature from an approximate 3,800 degrees Celsius, typical of standard composition B, to an astonishing level exceeding 4,500 degrees Celsius with the aluminum-enhanced variant. The resultant hotter jet exhibited superior coherence, maintaining its integrity and focus over extended distances, and consequently penetrated armor more efficiently through a synergistic combination of heightened kinetic energy and intensified thermal erosion. In 1944, German metallurgists meticulously analyzed captured American warheads, successfully identifying the critical aluminum content within the explosive. Reports indicate that they subsequently attempted to replicate this advanced formula, yet their efforts were ultimately thwarted by significant safety concerns regarding the highly sensitive material and severe shortages of necessary raw materials, preventing its widespread adoption across their own forces. Another crucial design element for maximizing penetration proved to be the standoff distance, the precise gap maintained between the warhead's nose and the target surface. The copper jet, post-detonation, required approximately 6 inches to fully form and achieve its optimal coherence and velocity. This fundamental requirement directly informed the design of bazooka warheads, which featured elongated nose cones specifically engineered to detonate the shaped charge at this optimal distance from the armor surface. Should the warhead strike its target at an oblique angle or merely glance off, the crucial standoff distance would be compromised, leading to a dramatic reduction in its penetrating capability. Consequently, military training manuals rigorously emphasize the importance of aiming for perpendicular hits whenever tactically feasible, although the chaotic realities of combat rarely afforded such ideal angles of engagement. The monumental task of scaling up production from modest Harvard laboratory batches to a staggering 500,000 warheads each month necessitated industrial improvisation on a scale that would have undoubtedly horrified peacetime safety inspectors. The War Production Board confronted an intricate logistical conundrum in August 1943. Composition B+, the enhanced explosive, was discovered to be 3 times more sensitive to accidental detonation than any other explosive material American factories had previously handled at an industrial scale. Traditional ordnance plants, designed for less volatile substances, typically employed hydraulic presses operated by workers positioned directly adjacent to the machinery. The inherent risks were profound. A solitary spark, a minuscule grain of grid-generating friction, or even a static discharge from the dry winter air possessed the potential to catastrophically detonate an entire batch of the aluminum-loaded explosive. Initial safety assessments painted a grim picture, predicting worker casualty rates approaching an unacceptable 2% monthly, a figure deemed intolerable even amidst the exigencies of wartime. A truly ingenious solution, however, emerged from an entirely unexpected quarter. Oldsmobile's expansive Lansing, Michigan facility had already been engaged in the manufacturing of M6A1 bazooka warheads since January 1943, albeit using the less volatile standard composition B. Howard Beicham, the astute plant manager, put forth a visionary proposal to adapt the highly efficient assembly line techniques that Oldsmobile routinely employed for the mass production of automotive components. Instead of having human operators stationed perilously beside the hydraulic presses, Beicham meticulously designed remote-controlled pressing stations. Within this innovative setup, operators would perform their duties from behind formidable reinforced concrete barriers, a staggering 12 feet in thickness, ensuring their safety. Workers meticulously observed the intricate pressing process through sophisticated periscope-style mirror systems, a technology ingeniously borrowed from submarine design. In the unfortunate event of a batch detonation, the blast force was engineered to vent harmlessly upward through specially designed frangible roof panels, while the operator remained securely shielded within their protective enclosure. The United States Army swiftly approved this groundbreaking design in September 1943, and Oldsmobile immediately commenced its intensive 90-day conversion period. The recruitment strategy for the vastly expanded workforce judiciously targeted a previously overlooked labor pool, married women whose husbands were serving overseas. Between October 1943 and January 1944, the Lansing facility successfully hired an impressive 2,470 women, many of whom possessed no prior industrial experience beyond the operation of common household appliances. Their comprehensive training program rigorously emphasized meticulous attention to detail and unwavering precision, rather than conventional physical strength. New recruits dedicated 3 intensive weeks to mastering essential skills, including the magnified inspection of copper cone liners for imperfections, the identification of minute contamination within explosive powder batches, and the scrupulous adherence to grounding procedures designed to prevent any hazardous static buildup. Betty Fitzgerald, who joined the plant in November 1943 at the age of 23, vividly recounted her training experience in a 1986 oral history interview, stating, "They taught us to move deliberately, never rush, and treat every grain of that gray powder like it was nitroglycerin, because functionally, it was." The elaborate production sequence commenced with the careful stamping of copper blanks from large rolled sheets, which were then precisely drawn into their characteristic cone shapes using powerful hydraulic presses operating at an immense 12 tons of pressure. Each individual cone underwent rigorous inspection by workers utilizing backlit examination tables to scrutinize for any surface irregularities. Any scratch exceeding a depth of 0.03 inches automatically resulted in the immediate rejection of the component. Once accepted, these meticulously formed cones proceeded to the explosive loading stations. Here, Composition B+ arrived in pre-measured, wax-coated pellets, having been expertly pre-mixed at the Holston plant located in Tennessee. These sensitive pellets were meticulously packed within grounded metal containers, which were further filled with inert gas to prevent any oxidation during transit. Workers, clad in specially designed cotton clothing and conductive footwear, leather shoes featuring copper rivets that connected directly to grounded floor mats, carefully loaded precisely measured quantities of these pellets into the hydraulic pressing chambers. The subsequent pressing operation demanded an extraordinary degree of precision. Insufficient pressure would prevent the explosive from forming a solid charge with consistent detonation characteristics, while excessive pressure could generate dangerous heat through friction, potentially triggering an accidental detonation. Oldsmobile's astute engineers ultimately devised and implemented a sophisticated graduated pressing sequence to mitigate these risks. The process began with an initial compression at 1,500 pounds per square inch, followed by 3 carefully calibrated incremental steps that progressively increased the pressure to a maximum of 4,000 psi. Crucially, A 30-second cooling interval was incorporated between each of these steps to dissipate any frictional heat buildup. The entire pressing cycle for a single warhead was completed within a precise 7-minute time frame. Remote operators diligently monitored an array of pressure gauges and temperature sensors, poised to abort any batch that exhibited anomalous readings indicating potential instability. Rejected charges were meticulously transferred to specialized blast containment vessels, and then safely transported to outdoor detonation pits for secure disposal. By March 1944, the Lansing facility had successfully achieved its ambitious production targets, fabricating an impressive 18,000 warheads daily. That same spring saw the activation of 2 additional manufacturing plants, General Motors facility in Flint, and a cleverly converted furniture factory in Grand Rapids. This combined industrial effort propelled the total output to an astounding 547,000 warheads monthly by May 1944, a critical surge in production perfectly timed for the imminent Normandy invasion. Against all initial dire predictions, the anticipated worker casualty rates never materialized. Through a combination of meticulous engineering, the implementation of innovative remote operation systems, and exhaustive, specialized worker training, the 3 plants collectively experienced only 2 fatal accidents throughout the entirety of 1944. Both of these tragic incidents, it is important to note, involved transportation mishaps rather than failures within the highly controlled production line itself. This remarkable achievement underscored the profound capability of American industry. It had not only successfully mass-produced a chemical compound that academic laboratories had deemed far too dangerous for large-scale handling, but it had also delivered this revolutionary weapon system to the battlefields of Europe, where its unprecedented effectiveness fundamentally rewrote the established rules of armored warfare. The Pacific Theater of Operations, however, introduced a distinct set of tactical challenges that were largely absent from the European battlefields. Japanese armor, in comparison, was considerably lighter. For instance, the Type 97 Chiha medium tank featured merely 25 mm of frontal armor, a thickness that could be readily defeated even by standard composition B warheads. Yet, Japanese defensive doctrines did not primarily revolve around conventional tank battles. Instead, their strategy centered on the construction of deeply fortified positions, meticulously carved into the unforgiving volcanic rock and dense coral limestone of the islands. It was within this unique and brutal environment, particularly during the ferocious fighting on Iwo Jima, that bazookas underwent a crucial tactical evolution, transforming from their original role as dedicated anti-tank weapons into indispensable tools for busting bunkers and neutralizing hardened fortifications. The formidable anti-tank weapons known as bazookas underwent a significant transformation, evolving into essential bunker-busting tools during World War II's Pacific Theater. On the island of Iwo Jima, a formidable bastion defended by 21,000 Japanese soldiers, an extensive network of 11 miles of interconnected tunnel had been meticulously excavated over an arduous 8-month period. These subterranean defenses featured robust firing positions, fortified with reinforced concrete walls reaching an impressive 4 feet in thickness, and ingeniously designed gun ports that exposed minimal targets to attacking forces. Detailed after-action reports from the Marine Corps, compiled following the February 1945 invasion of Iwo Jima, vividly illustrate the innovative adaptations in tactics adopted by bazooka teams. Conventional demolition charges typically necessitated engineers to perilously approach enemy bunkers within arm's reach, a virtually suicidal endeavor given the Japanese defenders' disciplined strategy of withholding fire until American troops were within grenade-throwing distance. In contrast, the bazooka offered a crucial standoff capability, allowing for safer engagement. A prime example of this ingenuity was Corporal Tony Stein, serving with the 28th Marines, who skillfully employed his battalion's M9A1 bazooka, an enhanced 1943 model featuring warheads augmented with aluminum, to systematically neutralize an impressive 14 pillboxes during the fierce fighting on the invasion's first day, February 19th. His remarkably effective technique involved launching multiple rockets at precisely the same impact point on the concrete fortifications, with each successive detonation progressively weakening the structure until the final projectile successfully punched through the compromised barrier. Stein's official citation specifically highlighted that the shape-charged jets generated by these rockets carved deep cavities, measuring an astonishing 18 inches into the reinforced concrete, shattering the material and creating deadly spalling that proved lethal to the defenders trapped inside. The brutal reality of cave warfare encountered on Okinawa, spanning from April through June of 1945, pushed the operational employment of bazookas to unprecedented extremes. Across the island's rugged southern ridges, Japanese forces had painstakingly fortified more than 400 intricate cave complexes, transforming them into virtually impregnable strongholds. Traditional artillery bombardments and flamethrower assaults largely proved ineffective against these entrenched positions. The labyrinthine caves extended to considerable depths and were characterized by multiple chambers, often featuring sharp, right-angled turns that efficiently deflected the destructive effects of explosive blasts. Army intelligence officers, meticulously examining captured Japanese defensive blueprints, made a critical discovery. Many of these caves had been substantially reinforced with salvaged steel rails and I-beams, repurposed from demolished infrastructure, thereby creating formidable barriers that conventional explosives were utterly incapable of breaching. In response to this grave challenge, the 96th Infantry Division urgently requested priority shipments of M20 Super Bazooka rockets. This formidable new variant boasted a larger 3.5-inch diameter and was loaded with a potent 8.5 pounds of composition B+, an advanced explosive that had just entered limited production in March 1945, offering a much-needed increase in destructive power. Lieutenant Colonel Howard Naylor's highly skilled combat engineers on Okinawa were instrumental in pioneering a groundbreaking cave-clearing technique, ingeniously combining the raw power of bazookas with an innovative approach to projectile trajectory, often referred to as creative geometry. Teams would strategically launch rockets at oblique angles into the narrow cave entrances, deliberately bouncing the projectiles off the interior walls to reach deeper, otherwise inaccessible chambers within the complex. Upon impact, the powerful shape-charged jets would detonate against whatever surface the warhead ultimately struck, whether it be the hidden steel reinforcement, carefully stockpiled ammunition stores, or, frequently, enemy personnel themselves. The 7th Infantry Division, in its official reports, documented the successful clearing of 87 cave positions using this audacious method during the intense fighting of May 1945, noting an average ammunition expenditure of 6.3 rockets per cleared cave. While undeniably effective, this pioneering technique was fraught with danger. Occasional ricochets unpredictably brought rockets hurtling back towards American positions, posing a significant threat. Nevertheless, despite the inherent risks, this innovative approach dramatically reduced casualty rates by an impressive 70% when compared to the perilous direct assault methods previously employed. Please stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The Korean War marked a significant full circle for the bazooka, returning its primary role to anti-armor warfare when North Korean T-34-85 tanks aggressively crossed the 38th parallel on June 25, 1950. These formidable Soviet-supplied tanks were equipped with 90 mm frontal armor, cunningly set at steep angles, which effectively increased their defensive capability to an equivalent of 130 mm against perpendicular hits. Early American engagements against these armored behemoths proved disastrous and disheartening. Task Force Smith's 2 bazooka teams, for instance, fired a total of 22 rockets at advancing T-34s on July 5, 1950, yet achieved a disheartening 0 penetrations. The root cause of this alarming failure was soon identified. The rockets in question were surplus M6A3 warheads, manufactured in 1944, and their composition B+ charges had severely degraded over 6 years of storage in the humid and unforgiving conditions of the Pacific. Frantic cables, conveying the urgent need for effective countermeasures, swiftly reached the Pentagon, demanding immediate shipments of fresh ammunition and, crucially, more powerful anti-tank weaponry. The much-anticipated solution arrived decisively in August 1950, when the Marine Corps executed their pivotal landing at Incheon, bringing with them the newly deployed M20 Super Bazookas, now loaded with freshly manufactured warheads. These advanced warheads utilized an updated and significantly improved explosive formula, designated Composition B4, which notably contained an enhanced 20% aluminum powder. This represented a critical refinement of Kistiakovsky's original ratio, made possible through the development of better manufacturing safety controls implemented since 1945. Under optimal conditions, the penetration performance against the formidable T-34 armor now reached an impressive 8.5 inches. Subsequently, Soviet technical intelligence teams, meticulously analyzing knocked-out T-34s, recovered fragments of these advanced warheads and successfully identified the presence of the aluminum-loaded explosive composition. This crucial analysis directly influenced the subsequent Soviet development of the RPG-2 and, later, the iconic RPG-7, both of which notably incorporated aluminum powder in their warhead charges. This establishes a clear and direct lineage, tracing back to the forbidden chemistry that Kistiakovsky had daringly pioneered in his Harvard laboratory a full 12 years prior. Today, the conceptual descendants of the original bazooka continue to serve in military forces across the globe. From the American M72 Law rockets to the Russian RPG-29s, virtually every modern shape-charge anti-tank weapon owes its profound effectiveness to the foundational metallurgical principles and the sophisticated explosive chemistry that were meticulously refined during those desperate, critical months in 1943. When penetrating seemingly impenetrable German steel appeared to be an insurmountable challenge. Kistiakovsky's audacious willingness to transgress established safety regulations in his relentless pursuit of superior chemistry did not merely contribute significantly to the Allied victory in World War II, it fundamentally established the core approach that continues to govern the design and development of anti-armor weaponry even 8 decades later.